You're making $200,000 a year, but if you stop working tomorrow, you're broke in 90 days. Welcome to the high-income trap. In America, we've been sold a lie. We're taught that a six-figure salary is the finish line. You hit $150,000, $200,000, maybe even $300,000, and you think you've won. But look at your bank account on the 30th of the month. Where did it go? You aren't rich, you are just a high-velocity conduit for cash. Money flows into your hands and immediately flows out to the bank, the car dealership, and the IRS. You're handling more money than your father ever dreamed of, yet you feel more suffocated than he ever did. This is the mirage. You see the water ahead, but every time you take a step, the desert of debt gets wider. In the industry, they call you a Henry, high earner, not rich yet. But let's be more honest, you're a professional debt servicer. Think about it. In 2026, a $200,000 household income in a U.S. metro area after federal taxes, state taxes, and FICA leaves you with roughly $11,000 to $12,000 a month. Sounds great, right? Until the ratchet effect kicks in. You didn't just get a raise, you upgraded. That $4,500 mortgage for the correct zip code. The $1,200 dual SUV leases because you earned a nice ride. The $3,000 for private school or high-end childcare because you want the best for your kids. Before you buy a single gallon of milk, $9,000 is already spoken for. You are playing a high-stakes game of break-even, and the margin for error is zero. One layoff, one health scare, one market dip, and the entire house of cards collapses. The most dangerous part of the mirage? It feels like success. Your neighbors see the Tesla in the driveway and the curated vacation photos on Instagram, and they think you're killing it. But you know the truth. You lie awake at 2 a.m. wondering why you feel like you're drowning on a salary that 90% of the world would kill for. You've built a lifestyle that requires you to be a 100% efficient machine for the next 20 years just to stay still. You aren't working for freedom anymore, you're working to maintain the signal of being successful. You've traded your sovereignty for status, and the bank owns the deed to both. The high-income mirage is designed to keep you running until you're 65, exhausted, with a pile of stuff but no actual wealth. It's time to stop polishing the bars of your cage and start looking for the exit. Meet Mark, 54 years old, senior project manager, living in a quiet suburb outside of Austin. Mark is the guy everyone envies. He earns $215,000 a year. To his parents, he's a genius. To his neighbors, he's a rock star. But to his bank, Mark is just a pass-through entity. Mark isn't irresponsible. He doesn't gamble or buy Rolexes every weekend. He's a good man. He followed the script, work hard, get the promotion, buy the dream. But in 2026, the dream has a massive monthly subscription fee. Let's look at Mark's sovereignty score. Every month, $13,500 hits his account after Uncle Sam takes his cut. First $4,800? Gone. That's the mortgage on the house that signals his status. Next $1,400? Gone. 2 car payments for vehicles that spend 22 hours a day sitting in the driveway. Then comes the $2,500 for his daughter's final year of private college, a non-negotiable expense for a man of his standing. Add in the $900 for property taxes, $600 for the country club networking membership, and $1,200 for groceries and utilities. Before Mark even breathes, he has $11,400 in fixed obligations. His freedom margin is exactly $2,100. One transmission failure, one unexpected dental surgery, or one flight to see an aging parent, and Mark is officially saving zero. Mark is living in an $800,000 house, but he can't afford to leave it. He's driving a luxury SUV, but only to a job he's secretly terrified of losing. He's successful by every metric except the only one that matters, options. If Mark's boss insults him tomorrow, he has to swallow it. Why? Because the good life requires a $12,000 monthly tribute to the gods of suburban status. Mark isn't an owner, he's a high-end caretaker of things that belong to the bank. He's 54, at the peak of his career, and he has less quit money than he did when he was 28 and living in a studio apartment. Mark's story isn't a tragedy yet. It's a warning, because the sandwich generation crisis is about to hit him, and his $2,100 margin isn't going to save him. The paradox of being rich but broke is a uniquely American disease. We define rich by how much we can spend, not how much we own. In the US, if you earn $200,000, you are culturally obligated to look like you earn $200,000. This is the lifestyle tax. You aren't broke because you lack money, you are broke because you lack liquidity. Your wealth is trapped in debt equity, the walls of your house, the leather of your car seats, and the brand names on your clothes. On paper, your net worth looks impressive. In reality, your life operating system is running at 98% capacity. If the power flickers for even 1 second, the whole system crashes. Why did Mark do this to himself? Because in your 50s, the Joneses aren't just your neighbors, they're your peers on LinkedIn, your colleagues at the firm, and your siblings. In the US, status isn't just about ego, it's about social survival. You tell yourself the $1,200 car lease is for reliability. You tell yourself the $5,000 vacation is for family memories. But subconsciously, you're paying the approval tax. You are terrified of the version of yourself that doesn't have these things. The rich but broke paradox exists because we use our peak earning years to buy a version of ourselves that we think the world expects to see. We aren't building a fortress, we're building a stage. And the rent for that stage is killing your retirement. Here's the cold truth: wealth is the silence of money. It's the things you don't buy. It's the options you haven't spent yet. The rich but broke man is always one paycheck away from a panic attack because his money velocity is too high. The cash moves through his life so fast it doesn't have time to settle and compound. You've become a world-class manager of expenses, but a low-tier architect of freedom. You are running a multi-million-dollar life with the cash reserves of a teenager. In your 50s, this isn't just a lifestyle choice, it's a systemic failure. Because while you're busy being rich but broke, the three biggest financial monsters of the 21st century are quietly lining up at your door. And they don't care about your zip code. You think your biggest enemy is the stock market? Wrong. The market eventually goes up. Your real enemy is the fee vampire. Most American men in their 50s have a financial advisor they've known for a decade. He's a nice guy. He plays golf with you. And he's quietly charging you 1% to 1.25% to manage your portfolio. You think, it's just 1%. That's a rounding error. But in the world of compounding, 1% isn't a fee, it's a heist. You're not paying 1% of your money, you're paying 1% of your entire asset base every single year, regardless of whether the market goes up or down. Your advisor gets paid if you win, and he gets paid even more if you lose and stay invested. Let's do the math your advisor will never put on a slide. Imagine you have $1 million at age 50. You plan to retire at 65. Over those 15 years, with a standard 7% return, that $1 million should grow to roughly $2.7 million. But if you're paying a 1.25% fee, your real return is 5.75%. That same $1 million only grows to $2.3 million. You just paid $400,000 for advice. Think about what $400,000 island. That's 5 years of early retirement. That's a fully paid-off beach house. That's your grandkids' Ivy League tuition. You didn't pay for management, you funded your advisor's boat while you were grinding 60-hour weeks. You took 100% of the risk, but the fee vampire took 30% of your total gains. Here's the kicker: 85% of active fund managers fail to beat a simple, low-cost S&P 500 index fund over a 10-year period. You are paying premium prices for subpar performance. In 2026, the technology exists to manage your own portfolio for 0.03% virtually free. But the industry relies on your complexity bias. They make it sound complicated so you feel safe paying them to handle it. The fee vampire doesn't want you to be a sovereign investor. He wants you to stay confused, stay compliant, and stay invested in his lifestyle. It's time to look at your statement. If your total annual cost exceeds 0.3%, you aren't an investor, you're a donor. You've been told for 30 years that the 401k is the holy grail of retirement. Save now, pay taxes later when you're in a lower bracket, they said. It sounded logical in 1995, but in 2026, it's the most dangerous trap in your portfolio. Here is the truth: your 401k isn't your money. It's a joint venture between you and the Internal Revenue Service. You put in 100% of the capital, you take 100% of the market risk, and the IRS owns a lien on 25% to 40% of the total value. You're just the unpaid fund manager for the government's future revenue. The whole lower tax bracket theory is dead. Look at the U.S. national debt. Look at the aging demographics. Do you honestly believe tax rates are going down in the next 15 years? By deferring your taxes today, you are betting that the government will be more fiscally responsible in the future than they are now. That is a losing bet. When you reach 73 and the required minimum distributions, RMDs, kick in, the IRS will force you to withdraw massive amounts of cash, potentially pushing you into the highest tax bracket of your life. You aren't avoiding taxes, you're just growing a bigger crop for the IRS to harvest later. This is where Mark and most men in their 50s lose the game. They focus on the gross number on their statement, not the net number they can actually spend. If you have $1 million in a traditional 401k, and taxes are 30%, you only have $700,000. That's a $300,000 tax debt you're carrying every single day. The 10/10 move is to stop being a victim of future policy. You need to look at Roth conversions and tax-free municipal bonds, strategies that lock in today's tax rates so you own 100% of your future. The IRS is a silent partner that never sleeps, never takes risk, and always gets paid first. If you don't have a plan to fire them now, they will be the ones deciding whether you can afford that vacation in 2035. Don't build a mansion on a foundation owned by the government. There is a tax in America that doesn't show up on your W-2. It's not levied by the IRS, but it's just as mandatory. It's the prestige tax. In your 50s, you aren't just paying for goods and services, you're paying for status signaling. You live in the correct neighborhood with the high property taxes because that's where people like you live. You drive the European SUV because pulling up to the office in a 10-year-old Toyota would trigger a whisper campaign about your performance. You aren't buying things, you are buying professional insurance. You believe that if you look the part, you keep the role. But the premium on that insurance is eating your freedom alive. The prestige tax is a high-velocity drain. It's the $400 country club dinner where you don't even like the food, but you need the proximity. It's the $15,000 family vacation to a resort you only chose because it sounds impressive during Monday morning small talk. We call this identity maintenance. Every dollar spent on the signal is a dollar that cannot compound. By 55, many American men have spent $500,000 to $1 million simply maintaining the image of success. They are rich in social capital but bankrupt in sovereign time. You've built a life that looks like a masterpiece from the sidewalk, but inside, the plumbing is failing because you couldn't afford the repairs. Here is the 10/10 truth. The Joneses you are trying to keep up with? They are broke too. They are running the same panicked race, paying the same prestige tax, waiting for someone to be the first to stop. The moment you stop caring about the signal, you gain an immediate 20% raise. Real wealth is the ability to walk into a room and not care who thinks you're rich. It's the $100,000 you didn't spend on the luxury remodel that is now generating $800 a month in passive dividends. Stop being the high-cost hero. The most prestigious thing you can own in 2026 isn't a badge on a car hood, it's a paid-off life. It's time to stop funding your ego and start funding your exit. Your financial advisor loves the word average. Don't worry, Mark, the S&P 500 averages 8% to 10%. But in retirement, average is a death trap. When you're saving, the order of returns doesn't matter. But the moment you start withdrawing, the order is everything. This is the sequence of returns risk, the most ignored monster in U.S. retirement planning. If the market tanks in the first 3 years after you say I quit, your 30-year plan just evaporated into a 7-year disaster. Let's look at two men, Pete and Dave. Both have $1 million. Both withdraw $50,000 a year. Both get an average 7% return over 20 years. Pete retires in a green year. The market goes up 15% his first year. His pile grows faster than he spends it. He dies wealthy. Dave retires in a red year. The market drops 15% his first year. Dave still needs his $50,000 for the mortgage and health insurance, so he's forced to sell his stocks while they are on sale. He's killing his golden goose just to eat. By year 10, Dave is out of money, while Pete is a multimillionaire. Same average, different sequence. In the 90s, you could hide in bonds. In 2026, with inflation-adjusted returns being razor-thin, you don't have that luxury. If you are 55 today, you are walking into a volatility minefield. You are withdrawing money from an asset class, stocks, that is at all-time high valuations. If you don't have a cash bucket or a volatility shield, a way to live for 2 years without touching your stocks, you are playing Russian roulette with your 401k. You aren't investing anymore, you're gambling that the world stays perfect for the next 36 months. The market doesn't care about your retirement party. It doesn't care that you worked 30 years for this. It is a cold, mathematical machine that will liquidate your lifestyle if you aren't prepared for the red sequence. In your 50s, you aren't just a provider, you are a financial shock absorber. You are caught in the sandwich squeeze, a brutal economic collision where you are simultaneously funding the future of your children and the survival of your parents. In America, we call this the golden years, but for most men, it feels like a pincer movement designed to drain every cent of liquid capital before they ever hit the 65-yard line. First, let's talk about the education trap. You want your kids to have the best, so you're looking at $60,000 to $80,000 a year for a prestigious degree. You've been told that a Parent Plus loan or dipping into your home equity is investing in their future. But here's the cold reality: there are no retirement loans. Your kids have 40 years to pay off debt, you have zero. Every $100,000 you gift them for a degree in 2026 is actually $400,000 you are stealing from your 80-year-old self. You aren't being a good dad, you're being a financial martyr for a system that has inflated tuition by 1,200% since you were in school. You are sacrificing your oxygen mask to give them a slightly better seat on a plane that's already flying. While you're writing checks for tuition, the other side of the sandwich hits your parents. In the US, the cost of a private room in a nursing home is now averaging over $9,000 a month. Long-term care insurance is either unaffordable or unavailable for most. If you haven't had the talk with your parents about their assets, you are the default insurance policy. One stroke, one fall, one diagnosis, and your $2,000 freedom margin we talked about with Mark? It's gone in 48 hours. You are suddenly managing 2 households, 3 generations of stress, and a mountain of medical bureaucracy. This isn't just a rough patch, it's a systemic wealth transfer from your retirement fund to the healthcare and education industries. The squeeze is why high-income men feel like they're drowning. You are the CEO of a family corporation that is over-leveraged and underinsured. If you don't set boundaries now, if you don't stop being the unlimited ATM for everyone else, you will reach age 65 with a house full of memories and a bank account full of apologies. Being a provider means protecting the long-term survival of the family, and that starts with securing your own perimeter first. It's time to stop being the sandwich and start being the architect. There is one financial black swan event that no spreadsheet can predict, yet it's exploding across the US: gray divorce. While divorce rates for younger couples are dropping, for those over 50, they have doubled since the 90s. We call it the 50% extinction event. You've spent 25 years building a castle, and in one courtroom session, the walls are split right down the middle. In your 50s, you don't have the time asset to recover. When you split a $2 million net worth at age 30, you have decades to rebuild. When you do it at 55, you aren't just losing half your money, you're losing 100% of your efficiency. You go from one roof to 2, doubling your property taxes, utilities, and maintenance. Your Qualified Domestic Relations Order, QDRO, hacks your 401k in half. Your Social Security strategy is shattered. Suddenly, the Mark we talked about, who was already struggling with a $2,100 margin, is now living in a bachelor apartment, paying alimony, and realizes his retirement date just moved from age 65 to never. It's the ultimate wealth reset, and in the US legal system, the man often bears the brunt of the standard of living adjustment. The gray divorce happens because couples spend 20 years talking about kids and careers, but 0 years talking about their post-child identity. When the kids leave, the empty nest, the silence in that big suburban house becomes deafening. The 10/10 strategic move? Treat your marriage like your most valuable investment. If you aren't auditing your relationship with the same intensity as your portfolio, you are leaving your largest asset vulnerable to a 50% haircut. Financial sovereignty isn't just about stocks, it's about relational stability. Don't let a communication gap become a capital gap that you can't close. We've spent the last few minutes identifying the traps. Now, we stop being the prey and start being the hunter. The first step to financial sovereignty isn't making more money, it's the burn rate reset. In your 50s, your burn rate is the amount of oxygen your lifestyle consumes every month. Most American men are breathing through a straw because their burn rate is too high. You've been told that downsizing is a sign of failure. In the 2026 economy, that's a lie. Downsizing isn't losing, it's liquidating the deadweight. It's trading a museum of your past for a fortress for your future. You need to perform a lifestyle audit with the cold-blooded efficiency of a Fortune 500 CEO. The housing anchor: if your kids are gone, why are you paying to heat, cool, and insure 4 empty bedrooms? Selling that 4,000 square foot suburban anchor and moving into a high-end condo or a smaller smart home doesn't just lower your mortgage, it unlocks hundreds of thousands in debt equity. The subscription trap: I'm not talking about Netflix. I'm talking about the status subscriptions, the $1,000 per MO car leases, the $5,000 per year club memberships, the $200 per MO lawn services you can automate. If you can drop your burn rate from $12,000 a month to $6,000, you didn't just save money, you effectively doubled your retirement nest egg overnight. Why? Because you now need half as much capital to sustain your life. The goal of the reset is to create the gap. The gap is the space between what you earn and what you must spend to be happy. Most men in their 50s have a gap of 5%. We're aiming for 40%. When you have a 40% gap, you stop fearing your boss. You stop checking the S&P 500 every hour. You become anti-fragile. You're no longer a high-velocity conduit for cash, you are a reservoir. You start using that excess cash to buy assets that pay you while you sleep: dividend aristocrats, REITs, or small business equity. This is the Great Reset. It's about realizing that a smaller, optimized life is infinitely more powerful than a massive, fragile one. You aren't cutting back, you're buying back your time. Now, it's time to stop the bleeding from your largest silent expense, the government. Most American men are tax lazy. They accept their tax bill as a fact of life. But in your 50s, tax planning is the difference between a first-class retirement and a coach-class struggle. It's time to move from defense to offense. You aren't just paying taxes, you are funding a system that doesn't have a plan for your old age. It's time to fire the IRS as your majority shareholder. The most powerful weapon in your arsenal is the Roth conversion. Remember that tax time bomb in your 401k? You need to defuse it now while tax rates are at historical lows. By strategically moving money from your traditional IRA to a Roth IRA, you pay the tax now on your terms, so every dollar of growth from this point forward is 100% yours. Think of it as a buyout. You are buying out the government's stake in your future. If you do this during a market dip or a lower income year, you're essentially getting a discount on your freedom. In 2026, with the national debt spiraling, tax-free income isn't just a nice-to-have, it's a survival necessity. You want to reach age 73 and have the IRS look at your accounts and realize there's nothing left for them to take. Stop thinking about total return and start thinking about after-tax yield. You need to organize your assets into 3 buckets. 1. The taxable bucket, your brokerage account for long-term capital gains, lower rates. 2. The tax-deferred bucket, your 401k, the danger zone to be minimized. 3. The tax-free bucket, your Roth accounts and health savings accounts, HSAs. The HSA is the secret weapon of the American 50s. It's the only account that is triple tax advantaged, tax-free in, tax-free growth, and tax-free out for medical expenses. Considering healthcare is the #1 expense in retirement, your HSA is actually your most valuable alternative retirement fund. Tax warfare isn't about evasion, it's about strategic sovereignty. Every dollar you legally shield from the IRS is a dollar that works for your family, not a federal bureaucracy. It's time to stop being a tax victim and start being a tax architect. In your 50s, your biggest risk isn't a market crash, it's stagnation. Most American men are equity rich and cash poor. You have $500,000 sitting in the walls of a house you don't fully use, and another $400,000 in low-yield safe bonds that are barely beating inflation. These are dead assets. They look good on a net worth statement, but you can't buy a steak with a brick from your chimney. Asset relocation is the art of moving capital from things that cost you money to things that pay you money. It's time to stop hoarding potential and start manufacturing velocity. Think like a private equity firm. If an asset isn't performing, you sell it and move the capital to a higher yield environment. The 1031 exchange mindset: if you have an underperforming rental property or excess land, swap it for a triple net lease or a high yield REIT. Stop being a landlord, start being a shareholder. The bond substitution: in 2026, old school 60-40 portfolios are failing. Relocate that lazy cash into private credit or dividend aristocrats, companies that have increased dividends for 25 plus years. You want income that grows faster than your expenses. The goal of relocation is to build an income floor. This is the amount of passive cash flow that hits your account every month, regardless of what the S&P 500 does. Imagine Mark. Instead of $800,000 in dead home equity, he downsizes, unlocks $400,000, and moves it into a diversified income fund yielding 7%. That's an extra $2,300 a month. Suddenly, his freedom margin doesn't just grow, it explodes. When your income floor covers your reset burn rate, you are officially sovereign. You aren't retired, you are simply unfireable. You've moved from a fragile, growth-dependent model to a resilient, cash-flow-first empire. You've stopped betting on the future value of things and started capturing the present value of your life. We've spent around 20 minutes dismantling the American dream, but we didn't do it to leave you empty-handed. We did it to give you something better: sovereignty. The old reality told you that your value was tied to your title, your zip code, and the size of the debt you could manage. The new reality says your value is tied to your freedom. Retirement isn't a finish line where you sit on a porch and wait for the end. That's a slow death. In the new reality, retirement is strategic pivot point. It's the moment you stop being a resource for someone else's corporation and start being the CEO of your own life. You aren't quitting, you are upgrading to a version of yourself that doesn't need permission to exist. Imagine waking up on a Tuesday morning. The burn rate is low. The tax warfare is won. The income floor is solid. You don't check the stock market because you're worried about a crash. You check it because you're curious about your dividends. You don't check your email because you're afraid of your boss. You check it to see which project you want to work on today. This is the unfiltered life. When you remove the prestige tax and the sandwich squeeze, you realize that you don't actually need $5 million to be free. You just need a system that works while you sleep. You've traded the illusion of wealth for the reality of time. You can finally be the father, the husband, and the mentor you were meant to be, because your mind isn't occupied by the 2 a.m. panic of a high-cost lifestyle. But let's be clear, the system is designed to pull you back. The media will tell you to keep spending. Your neighbors will tell you you're crazy for downsizing. Wall Street will tell you that you need their expensive advice. Your final mission is to stay sovereign. 1. Trust the math, not the emotion. 2. Protect the perimeter of your cash flow. 3. Never let your status outpace your solvency. You are part of a new generation of American men who are refusing to be rich but broke. You are the architects of a silent revolution, one where wealth is measured in stress-free years, not depreciating assets. The 2026 financial landscape is a battlefield, but you now have the map. You know where the traps are. You know how the fee vampire operates. You know how to defuse the tax time bomb. The new reality is waiting. Don't polish the anchor. Cut the chain. Subscribe to Sky Invests. We don't sell dreams, we build exits.